We'd like to welcome you all to the State of the ASA meeting, to be followed by an ice cream social, which is our custom on Sunday evening. My name is Bill Jordan, and I am the current president of the ASA Executive Council. And on behalf of the council and on the executive leadership, John and Vicki and the other staff, we welcome you to this meeting. So what you're going to hear from tonight is first me, my personal presidential report, where I look at some fun basic issues facing our society as well as the things that we're doing well. And then the executive team report with John and Vicki will talk about more specific details of what's going on. Then we'll be honoring the 50-year members, some remembrances of members who have gone to glory and have died this past year. And then there'll be a number of awards from the Christian Women in Science, the Student Campus Minister, and some scholarship. And then we're going to have a report from the people who are organized next year's meeting in Toronto, Ontario. There will be then a question and answer, and then the ice cream social. So first, I want to give you kind of my personal perspective, excuse me, as the president of the ASA Council since last March. Question of who am I? I know a lot of you, but some of you I don't know. That's a photograph of my lovely bride of 40 years this past summer. That's from, that was taken on a Holland America ship when we did a cruise last January. I'm a professor emeritus of mechanical engineering at Baylor University. ASA is one of the major things I do now that I am retired, but I do some other things. I'm a member of the Engineering Accreditation Commission of ABET. ABET is the organization of professional societies that accredit engineering programs and which also decide what the content should be. You know, what is different about a mechanical engineer versus an electrical engineer. So I've had the privilege of being on that commission for 3 years, and it's been a very enjoyable experience, and it's also, I think, an important one. I'm also an officer in the Christian Engineering Society. I've already told you I've been married for 40 years, and I love to travel. It's nice, as we're emerging from the pandemic, to get back to travel. I've been in all 50 states and about 38 countries, so I really like going around and seeing the world. Provinces. I've been in British Columbia, Ontario, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island, and Quebec. So I think that's 6. Okay. I have been in ASA a long time. The photograph on your left is the 1973 graduating class in metallurgical engineering from the Colorado School of Mines, which contains photographs of 2 future ASA council presidents. Right here is Walter Bradley, who many of you know, obviously is much younger then. I was one of many young men with long hair. That's me right here. Okay. I still vividly remember my first ASA meeting at Taylor University in 1980, and I was part of, at some point, a small group discussion with Walter Hearn. And there's a picture of me and Walter in 1980. I joined the Executive Council in 2018, and I'm in my 5th and final year of my term. This has been, to be quite honest, a very rough 5 years for the ASA, for issues including the pandemic, but more than just the pandemic. We had a leadership crisis, I think is a fair statement to make, and we decided as a council we need a new executive director. We had a retreat in January of 2020 at Fort Collins University that Terry Gray hosted, and that was our last council meeting in person for almost 2 years. Simultaneously with the arrival of the pandemic, and also during that time period, John Wood became our interim executive director. For 1 year, he served that as well as president of our council. There are many changes as a result of the pandemic. One question that's been asked is, are we still in support of our mission, even though we've had to change things? I think we're firmly in support of the mission of the ASA. How we express it is changed because of the issues of the pandemic. So some of the newer events we've done, which I really like, is the diving deeper thing, where people, once a month, you get to ask questions of a journal article author. And then every few months, there's a brown bag lunch. And I did that in one of my own papers recently, where you get to watch the video of someone who did a significant conference presentation, and then you could ask questions of the author. Then the January symposium. So we've added some things because of the pandemic that we're going to keep on doing. One of the things that I am committed to, and so is the council, is the idea of the ASA as a big tent. There's a wide variety of views on a whole bunch of different topics. So the likelihood is at some point this weekend, you're going to hear something you don't like. And that's okay, because we are a diverse group who are committed to the Christian faith as expressed in the Apostles' and Nicene Creed, but we have lots of different opinions on a variety of things. I'm an example of the big tent in that I'm a double minority within this society, because I'm an engineer and I'm an old earth creationist. And neither one of those is the majority opinion of the members. But the point is, we can all talk about things related to faith and science in a civil and nice way. And that's one of the things I really, really appreciate about the ASA. The ASA, I think we do very many things very well. This conference is one of them. Our annual conference is always a highlight of my year every summer in July, where I get to meet old friends and new friends and get to talk about things that are important to me. And certainly our journal continues to have excellent high quality, and the more recent God and Nature magazine, e-magazine. So we're going to continue to do the things that we're doing well, but we're also going to continue to do some of the brand new things we started as a result of the pandemic. But we do face some challenges within the ASA. We need more diversity within our group. So the obvious ones of gender and ethnicity. One of the things I'm really excited is the 60-plus students who are here this weekend, because we're very happy you're here. We got a lot of old people like myself, and we're still welcome in this society, but we really need younger members who will can be our leaders of the future. Another thing we need is more discipline diversity. We're not nearly as strong in the social sciences side of things as we were maybe 20 years ago or so. So we need to maintain diversity of various disciplines as well. We need to also reach beyond our base, because a high percentage of the non-students who are here are from Christian universities, as I am. But for 20 years, I came to ASA meetings when I was at a secular university. So we need to get people from secular universities. We need to get people who work with government and for-profit companies as well. Another thing is we're going to need to have to do more things to have more outreach. You know, the engineers had breakfast this morning, and we talked about how can you make the society more, not necessarily more welcoming, but more helpful for engineers. And we're having that discussion in each of the various disciplines, of various science disciplines as well, of how can we make the ASA more productive and more helpful. An example that the engineers talked about, I already had in my slide, is perhaps adding some professional content, professional development things, particularly Friday workshops. That's not the only thing we can do, but that's one of the things the engineers talked about this morning, and we're talking about that with the other disciplines as well. Another thing is we need to strengthen the groups that are within us. The local chapters have grown very well, even in the midst of the pandemic, with many of them meeting just virtually, but still meeting. And that's a critical thing, particularly to bring new people, young professionals into our society, to have an active set of local chapters. We have a number of affiliate groups. The Christian Remnant Science, you had a banquet a couple nights ago, and other meetings, and you've been a very big help to our society. We have affiliates of engineers and geologists, and we had a theologians group meet for the first time this morning. One of the things we need to recognize is we're not alone in the Christian faith and science area. So one of the things that we're beginning to develop, and we're not exactly sure how that's going to work, to be honest, is partnerships with other organizations who may not necessarily want to join us as a society, but who can help us and whom we can help. Examples might be the Christian Math Group, the Christian Engineering Society. There's also Christian subgroups in most of the scientific discipline society meetings. Sometimes they're formal, sometimes they're informal. So these will not be unlike the affiliates, these won't necessarily be merging of the societies, but collaboration, because we can help them and they can help us. And one of the things we're going to need to do is we need more staff, and we've hired a lot of staff, as Vicki or John will tell you in a few minutes, in recent months. One of the future things is, with all the struggles or things we've had to do, I really think our best and most impactful days are ahead of us. I think we've emerged from the pandemic a stronger group. I think we've emerged from it a much more creative group. That first summer, we couldn't put on a full conference, but John and Vicki organized what we called a summer something, and we still could meet with each other. I remember last year having a Sunday night ice cream social in my living room. Vicki sent a bunch of us sprinkles to put on our ice cream, and we could eat ice cream and visit with each other over Zoom. It's going to be a lot more fun to do that tonight in person. And certainly our leadership is committed to doing this. Now, these are the end of the slides. I've been asked by the council to do 2 more things tonight. I'm not going to take a lot of time to do them, but one of them is we've been going through the process of a search for a new executive director. I think we've been very ably served by Dr. John Wood the last 2 years, but he's fundamentally a retired person who would like to retire again. So we've done a search. I can't tell you the name of the person yet, but what's happened is we got 8 serious applications. The search committee did Zoom interviews with 4 of them and has made a recommendation to the executive council. So we can't name any names yet because we still have some steps to go through in the process. But what we committed as a council on last Thursday is we are confident that we can make a public mass email announcement of our new executive director no later than September 15th. So I'm excited about that. I think John's excited about that too. So I'm looking forward to doing that. The next one is one the council asked me to do, and I'd like to invite John Wood to come up with me. He's going to be the following speaker anyway. While John is not at the end of his term, he's getting really close. So what the council did out of our own personal funds, no society funds were used, is we wanted to give you 2 gifts. First, here's a card signed by all the council. John, I know you're a book person. Our original plan was to give you a gift card from Amazon. Given the nature of our technology world, what you're going to get tomorrow is an emailed gift card from Amazon for $530 to use any way.
Wow.
Whoa. One other thing the council agreed to do, using our own resources, is to give John a plaque.
Oh my.
The plaque shows the logo of the society, and I'll read it. It says, Outstanding Service Award presented by the ASA Executive Council to Dr. John Wood for his many years of service to the cause of integrating science and Christian faith as member of the ASA Executive Council, President of the ASA Executive Council, and Interim Executive Director of the ASA, July 2022. We want to thank, the council wants to thank John very much. Here is a box to get it home safely. Okay. So at this point, I think someone wants to take a picture of us and your...
Yeah, let's just...
Yes, we'll put that away.
Drop this box and we'll step away.
Thank you. And then it's my turn to turn it over to John, who has the next section as well. So thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Bill. One thing, and I can do this for you. Right here, the executive. my privilege to work with these folks. And you see them. They are your servants, and they serve you well. And Bill and I have been 5 years together, and we went to 3-year terms here in 2019. And Michael is the last of our 5-year members on the council. And I can tell you stories about every one of them, and maybe make up for what Say Kim said last night. But so who's this old guy with the hair? Well, you know, I mean, you know, when you wear 2 hats, interim director and president of the council, yeah. So how are we doing? Okay. That is the state of the ASA. It has just been wonderful. You know, Hal Poe was pretty tough on us in the various disciplines last night. My goodness, but he elevated the engineers, Bill. But biology, squishy. So I was thinking, Erica, I think you're in the audience tonight. Yes, I was thinking about that because you were talking about reductionism and emergence, and the examples you were using were all sort of hard rock stuff, right? It was all crystals and things, not very biological. And we're on the other end of things, but that's kind of what you expect out of physics, because they do theories of everything, right? TOEs. And they do the grand unification theory, taking the fundamental forces of the universe, which we all learned were 4, but now recently they've suggested at least 5. And listening to Erica, maybe there's something else buried there we don't know about. But take those 4 fundamental forces into a grand unification theory, a GUT. TOEs, GUTs. It is all biology afterwards. It's all toes and guts. And actually, I actually think, because you're talking about agency, and that's really what God has given us. Isn't it delightful that we do have this amazing thing that God has done in this corner of the universe? Well, seriously, I do want to move. This is a historic meeting. People have sensed that. You felt it last night. You're hearing and seeing things that we've never been able to do before, and that's absolutely remarkable. A year ago, online, I said there were 3 things needed for the transition that Bill was talking about. That transition actually starts in 2015 with a search for the previous executive director. And that whole council that was there and did a wonderful job. And we were moving in that direction. And throughout Leslie's term with us and her service to us, and then beginning in 2020 with the pandemic and the need to move forward, we were challenged. Council actually read a brief article together about, is this a blizzard, this pandemic? Is it going to just be a winter storm? It'll be over soon. Or is this an entire winter season that we've entered into where it's going to go for 6 months or a year? 2 years? Or maybe we've entered a little ice age. Maybe there's a fundamental change that's taking place. And they said, every nonprofit, throw away your playbook and start over, reinvent yourself. And this council and the team in ASA has been reinventing us for the 21st century, and we're excited about how that's happening. That requires change, and change is very discomforting. It is difficult, it's hard, it makes you sweat, it makes you labor, and we've been undergoing enormous change. But you also need clarity to protect your mission, to know what it is and to be on it. And you need that in your governance, and the council has stepped forward to give clarity and policy so that the management team, we know what to do. We know what is expected by our members, and we're excited about that. That's a real move forward. And then finally, it takes courage. I can't tell you how challenging it is to lead nonprofits in this kind of a day and to deliver the services that this team has been delivering. Both those folks are resident in the office, and we have distributed team members and volunteers right across North America. And they're doing a marvelous job stepping forward to work for us. Tonight, what we're going to do, and on the way in, many of you got a handout. I don't know how many of those we have in the room. We're going to talk about our strategic vision. We really want to map our future. And one of the things to get clarity was to develop this kind of a visualization of who we are and what our future might look like. And so we tried to capture in these three colored segments here a strategic vision, what that involves with our values, our vision, and our mission. And then we looked at what is our leadership intent? That is, what are the kinds of things we intentionally do and are trying to do and measure ourselves to accomplish in terms of scholarship, professional development and formation. Bill mentioned that. And our fellowship and community. I think Walter referred to that this morning. The key thing that sets us apart is that we are a scholarly society? No. Professional society? No. We are a collection of women and men who are believers in Jesus Christ. That's what sets us apart. And it's remarkable. And then, what is our business model to support this and to see that it happens and we flourish and thrive as we go forward? Well, I want to tell you a little story here about these things. And I'm thinking about where to tell this story, but I think I'll tell it right now since I've introduced this idea. So, a bureaucrat and a sheep herder met in the mountains. Here in the Sierra Nevada, in the summertime, there are sheep grazing up these slopes. And there are herders, you can get a summer job doing that if you like, going up and down slopes with the sheep. So the bureaucrat walks up and he says, "My, you have wonderful sheep." And the sheep herder says, "Yeah, you know how many?" And the bureaucrat says, "I bet I can guess. And if I can guess, will you give me one?" And the sheep herder goes, "Sure." He'll never guess. He'll never figure it out. So he says, "You have 164 sheep." How did he know? 164 sheep, you got it. And so the bureaucrat says, "Can I pick out my sheep now?" And the sheep herder goes, "Let me ask you a question. What if I can guess your profession?" And the bureaucrat says, he'll never get it. He says, "Can I have my sheep back?" And he says, "Sure." He says, "Oh, you're a bureaucrat. How did you know?" He says, "Put my dog down and I'll help you." Now, we all laugh at that, partly because it's like lawyer jokes. It meets a certain image that we have of a professional incompetence that's just endemic and built right in. You know, one of the things that we're trying to do in the ASA is to change those attitudes and those approaches. All the jokes will still be funny, but we'll come to a different conclusion in the end. And so we've looked at our mission, and as Bill said, we are clearly on our mission. We know who we are. We know that we serve the church, we serve science, we integrate. You've heard that statement repeatedly this weekend. And on the handout, those handouts did go out, right? Yeah, okay, very good. You see those. There is a brief statement. And what that is a very quick 10-second summary of our mission. It's not the whole of the mission, but that's something you can communicate to people. And they say, "What's the ASA?" And this is our mission. And then when you look and you ask the question, it says, "What of our vision?" Now, vision is not a vision of an end. It's our intention of what we want to become. And that is, we want to serve you. ASA is here to help you, to enable you to do what God has called and gifted you to do. Because if the ASA wants to reach science, can we do that with a journal? Well, not many people in sciences read the journal. Can we do that with our annual meetings? These are small annual meetings. But every one of you, every day, in what God has called and gifted you to do, is reaching individuals in your churches, in the scientific communities, in all of the diversity of disciplines, sectors of industry and government and the academy, and some people working independently. All of us representing what God has called and gifted us to do. Our job is to help you do that better and to let you know. And many of you will work as I have worked, and Bill and others. We won't be known as public intellectuals. We won't have the profile of a Francis Collins, a fellow of the ASA, or a Catherine Hayhoe of the fellow of the ASA, right? But there are some that will. But all of us will reach into our churches and into our places of employment and into our communities. And we all are bringing this common mission to integrate science and faith and bring those two solitudes together. So that's really our vision for you. And then our values, you see them: scholarship and clarity. You'd think I'd be able, I'm so tired, folks, right now. I'm trying to remember those. When I get a good night's sleep, I'll be able to tick those off for you very quickly. So that's our vision, mission, and values. So how do we serve our members? Very quickly, look at these segments. We intend, and we have delivered on scholarship. We lead the way in this sector. I've talked with James Peterson about this repeatedly. This is an organization that publishes in its sector one of the top faith science journals. It is well respected in its field, peer-reviewed and the rest. Our scholarship, both at our meetings and in our publications, is excellent. And we're really proud of that fact, and it has an impact. We've been looking at professional development and formation. How do you build the identity in individuals? How do you build that character? Well, those of us who are in Christian colleges and universities, like I was and Bill throughout our careers, we get that contractually. We have to do that. And there's all kinds of activities and books and seminars and things that we can do to help build it. But if you're in a secular university, if you're in government, at the end of the year, when they do your annual evaluation, do they ask you, now how did you integrate your faith with your work this year? It doesn't come up. And so how do we do it? ASA is one of those places. Many of us here in the audience have learned how to do that, how to bring that together. And we have lots of examples. Hal Poe mentioned last night, C.S. Lewis, Christians should write small books with high Christian content. If you pick up a copy of Roger Ween's Red Rover, you'll see in that book the story of character formation. Because what Roger does, as he's describing the marvelous, that he goes to work every day on Mars. He walks in, sits down in his office, and I don't know, it's all remote, right? That's amazing. But how do you get there? A very long project, working with individuals, a team of 150 or more that he guides. Well, there's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of personal challenges. And in his book, he describes very generously and very carefully, with wisdom that I think God has given him, how he navigates those very challenging and difficult problems. That's an example of professional development and formation as a Christian in the field. And for many of us, that's something new and different. And that's another way that we bring our faith and our vocational activities together. And then finally, the fellowship and community. And we're being very intentional about how we do that. As we said, we mentioned the various activities. And you've been experiencing that, obviously, this weekend. And finally, I want to say something here about your ASA lineage. I don't know if you've thought about this. Bill gave us a bit of his, and I got to thinking about it. And of course, all of our lineages start under the rainbow. This is off my children's back porch, and I thought, yeah, that's a promise. That's the promise of God. We are God's children, all of us. When I was in high school, my pastor said to me, in faith, he and I thought I was going into the ministry. He said, John, we need men like you in the ministry. That's what I intended to do, thought I would. But I realized actually that I love the sciences and was gifted to do that. Love the creation and studying it. Jim Kennedy gave me, in 1974, a student membership to ASA. Okay? 47 years later, here I am, and I am just in your place tonight. I mean, I'm right back there in my undergrad days. It feels like a student membership. Jim gave me that 2 years after ASA had been on the campus, 2 or 3 years. ASA had had its meeting on North Park campus, and they just were so excited about what ASA could do for us in our future. And then Walt Hearn has been mentioned. When I did grad school, first thing I did was got a hold of Walt when I got down to Berkeley, and he said, put me to work right away. He got the speakers, he had the network, and he says, would you make the phone calls and organize the meeting? And so about once a quarter, we would meet face to face with some of the founding members who've given substantially to see this organization grow. And so there's a chance to ladder your resume, to build all of that capacity in leadership. And then finally, Bernard Rem. Many of you may or may not have heard of him. He wrote a book on science and scripture in about 1954. He was I would call him the resident theologian in ASA in the 1950s and 60s. And this was in the late 70s or early 80s before he passed away. I was at a meeting at Berkeley. I remember it so well because the Q&A time came and I asked an impertinent question, and Bernard said something like, relax, son. There are many other people who have been working on these problems before you. And I was like, okay. It was an interesting, sort of public challenge. But what I got from that as I went home and my wife and I reflected on that was I got the wisdom of listening more, right, and having patience to see these really challenging problems solved. They don't turn on a dime. It takes a long time in the same direction. So what's your genealogy in the ASA? You've got an academic genealogy. What's your ASA genealogy? And then how will we succeed? Finally, the business model. Our business model is made up of these three areas. The stewardship one you heard about last night. And you think of stewardship as money coming in, but I want you to know that your council, and in particular the financial committee, which is responsible for proposing and developing policy for investment and policy to make sure that we are doing the right things with the precious gifts that you give to us. We are also a member of the ECFA, which is Evangelical Council of Financial Accountability, and that is a good housekeeping seal. We have standards that we sign off on every year. You can be assured that if you give to the ASA, that money will be used wisely and carefully. So that stewardship, we feel, also goes the other direction in helping other people and making investments like you saw this morning in the rescue mission here in San Diego. And then membership services and programming, we've been active in that, building that out and adding brand new services, including a career center and calling. And then it's finally the question of integrity and identity. We build those in our chapters. We build identity and integrity in our affiliations and in our partnership relationships with everyone. That's a short map of the ASA. That's who we are and what we're trying to do and how we intend to take us forward into the future. And now Vicki's going to detail for us some of our operational and our financial developments. Vicki?
Thank you, John. As I look out into the audience, I'm impressed that I'm seeing some of my fellow softball players here who have gone back and done a quick shower and are joining us for the meeting. And I'm sure Dominic and some of his volleyball players are here as well. I see Arnold shaking his head and a few other nods too. It's funny, Becky and Dana had told me they had stopped over to see the game. There was a little fan section, and thank you for the fans, too, that had come to watch. And they overheard somebody saying, "I'm not sure that's our group. They look too good." Well, I'll have you know that we had several players on our team who were hitting it over the fence, and I had promised them an ASA sweatshirt if they hit it over into the Pacific. Oh, I see a couple hands raised. So, too, a lot of fun. And Seth Hart was out playing, and we were chatting a little bit ahead of time, and I said to Seth, I said, "Oh, what's, a favorite part of your weekend here?" And he said to me, "The softball game." He's played for a number of years and just really enjoys looking forward to the games. And what he said is that this is what makes an ASA meeting unique, is being able to come and play softball and volleyball with fellow Christians. So fun evening tonight with that. I'm going to walk you through, like John said, some of the highlights over the last year and give you a operational and financial overview of the ASA. As John mentioned in reading the article by Praxis and Company, Leading Through the Blizzard, one of the things that they had mentioned was every nonprofit is a brand new startup. And in 2020, we had no sooner set our budget and COVID hit, and we very quickly repositioned and brought back to the council a 25% repositioned budget. But the good news was both in 2020 and in 2021, we ended the year with a balanced budget and a modest surplus. We exceeded our fundraising goals thanks to generous member giving. We also have a cross-functional team, as John had mentioned, and we'll talk about the team a little bit more in the second, but that has proved to serve us well, having the cross-functional aspects of the team. Staff team building takes place on a regular basis in the ASA, and we had a team retreat last year, and we are planning another one for the fall. While I'm thinking of the cross-functional team aspect, I'm going to backtrack just a second and give you an example of that. Becky English, who serves as our Director of Membership and Outreach, had a medical situation at the start of the year, and she was out of the office for 3 months. All the team members jumped in and picked up like we hadn't missed a beat. Some of you are aware of the fact that I lost my mother very unexpectedly this past spring, and I had to be at home and deal with my family situation. And again, it was not a problem. People just came in and carried on. And so that's the beauty of the cross-functional team that is very skilled and experienced. And so we're blessed to have many members of the team that we'll talk again in a second about. Many enhanced member services over the last year, including the rollout of the Career Center as well. Successful online programming, we've talked a bit about that. Many of you have been in and experienced our online programming. Continued excellence in the journal in God and Nature under the leadership of Jim Peterson and Sai and Aniko as well. Development of a planned giving program has taken place over the last couple of years, and you heard last night about the legacy giving and our plans for the endowment growth. So I'm going to walk through in detail some of these highlights now as we make our way through the agenda. As we talked about, we executed a successful annual meeting online last summer. The brown bag lunches quarterly continue to be a success, and we look forward to continuing those into the future, perhaps increasing the frequency of those. Many of you have come into the Diving Deepers that take place the second Saturday of every month, and we have a regular crowd that comes to them, and they've been very well received under the leadership of Randy Isaac. Our winter symposiums, we've had 2 of them so far, so 2 annual. They're going to become something that we do every year at the last Saturday in January. 2 years ago, we had Francis Collins. This past January, Philip Yancey came in, and we're looking at these as more outward focused, whereas the annual meetings are inward focused. And in fact, over the last 2 symposiums, we had several thousand people that joined us online, 2/3 of which were not ASA members. So again, a great way to focus outward. We were able to gain some members as well through both of those events. So again, something we can plan to continue. And then of course the chapter meetings have gone on over Zoom. And now we're at a point where chapters are beginning to meet in person, but also continuing the Zoom aspect as well. So that'll be part of our new normal moving forward. And then in terms of member services under the leadership, again, of Becky English, we've really focused on intentional member engagement during COVID. In fact, 2 winters ago, after COVID had hit, we decided one of our activities was to call 500 of our members. We started with our retired members and began working our way down, and just wonderful opportunity to engage with our members and really get to know them, ask them how we could be praying for them, and it was a delightful way to really get to know them better, and we were blessed more than they were, honestly, through the calls. Really touching time. Again, the chapters are very robust, and I'll talk a little bit more in a second, more specifically about Dana's work with the chapters and the affiliates as well. Bill mentioned the Pastors and Theologians affiliate group that is new and is getting activated. The biologist group, I understand, had a great meal meetup over the weekend, and we're re-energizing that affiliate group as well. Hannah Eagleson has been responsible for some of our partnership growth, and I'll talk about that in a second as well, and including in the investment in the next generation of student and early career members. But what we're really focusing on is a holistic view of our members. And I can honestly say over the last couple of years, we've had more members, more resources, and more engagement than we've ever had. So just real exciting times in the ASA. Local chapters and affiliates are going really, really strong, and in total, we have close to 4,000 members, subscribers, and followers worldwide. And we have it broken down here between the US and Canada, but we are very much an international organization. We have 25 chapters in the US and 11 in Canada, including 5 student and campus chapters. And I know a number of those student chapters are represented here this weekend, which is very encouraging. The way the chapters work is there's a leadership team of 3 that oversees each of the chapters. So when you think about that, we have over 100 ASA members engaged in chapter leadership. So thank you to the many of you who serve in that way and give of your time. Just a real awesome opportunity to engage with our members that aren't able to come to annual meetings and are at off times of annual meetings. And Dana's worked really hard at revitalizing some of the chapters that have floundered a bit, and has done a good job of starting new chapters as well. So if any of you are interested in starting a chapter, please see one of us, see Dana, and we'd be happy to help you start and get one going in your area if that's of interest to you. Hannah Eagleson, who you're going to hear from in a minute, has been responsible for our Emerging Scholars Network partnership that started about 5 or 6 years ago and has really continued to grow over the last several years. Hannah has come on board officially to the ASA team just over the course of the last couple months, and we're thrilled to have her on board. And she's going to be working with partnerships, and we describe our partnerships as relationships with like-minded organizations where our missions intersect for project work. And we've got a few of them listed here on the side. Several of them are exhibiting in our exhibit hall. So again, we're delighted to have our partnerships expanding and really thinking about the next generation and innovating for the 21st century. And just this weekend, in terms of the students, we've mentioned we've got 55 to 60 students participating, and I just want to take the opportunity to thank many of you who have given to the Student Scholarship Fund, and that is something that we are intentionally investing in so that we can continue to bring students to the meetings and engage in them moving forward. All of what we're talking about here now would not be possible without this amazing team that we have. You've met many of them over the course of the weekend, and we introduced most of them Friday night, but I just want to take the opportunity now to also mention Jim Peterson, who is editor-in-chief of our journal. Jim, give a wave. Some of you have probably had the opportunity to meet him. We appreciate your good work. Cy Gart is editor-in-chief of God and Nature, and Aniko Albert is managing editor. They were very disappointed not to be here, but we Zoomed with them on Thursday for the council meeting. Randy Isaac still is active in the ASA as Director Emeritus and IT consultant. He lives in the Boston area, so we see Randy on a fairly regular basis, and we've just added Michelle Pizzeni to our team as an administrative assistant. So we've got a very experienced team, and just delighted to have them working on our behalf. And again, none of this would be possible without them. Now I'm going to, thank you, Arnold. Now I'm going to shift gears, and we're going to look at a financial update of the ASA over the last year. John mentioned the ECFA and the standards that we abide by each year for that, and we have that seal of approval every year. That seal is on our website and in our fundraising materials, again, as a good housekeeping seal of accountability. I'm going to walk through the fiscal 2022 results and as well as the fiscal 23 budget. We've talked a bit about stewardship expansion. Again, you heard last night about our plans for the endowment growth, as well as the member services enhancements that we've talked about, the program growth through the online programming, and again, just the organizational capacity advancement that we've made over the last several years to be able to do the things that we're doing. And again, the development efforts have continued to expand through the planned giving program and the building out of a full-blown development plan as well. And then in terms of the sustainable health of the organization, John talked a bit about the mission clarity. Again, the organizational capacity to do the things that we've been doing. You can't just say you're going to do something and not have the capacity and the staff to do it. So we've really intentionally invested in the positions that we have in order to move the organization forward in terms of the capital structure enhancements as well. So now I'm going to move to the budget report here, and just want to quickly run through the revenue for fiscal 2022. Our fiscal year ends on March 31st. So we're now into a new fiscal year, but the results that we had from, let me get the pointer there, about, what's that? Oh, okay, there we go. Okay. So we took in $569,000 in revenue last fiscal year, and you'll see here our expenses were $428,000. So that was a bottom line profit of $141,000. So again, we ended the year from a very strong financial position last year. I'm going to go into a little bit of the detail of that in a second. And then in terms of this fiscal year, we increased our budget by about 20% here. And our budget this year is $526,000 in revenue. You'll see the different streams of revenue and expenses of $526,000. So we're planning, obviously, a balanced budget. Just want to say a quick word about the investment income here. You can see a big piece of our revenue model is the contributions and grants, program revenue from things such as this annual meeting, our dues and subscriptions, and then the investment income is the interest and dividend income from the endowment. So we have decided on a 5% draw policy from the endowment. So that comes into the operating budget each year. And again, part of the strategy with the endowment is as the endowment grows, that 5% is going to continue to grow and come into the operational budget, allowing us much more capacity in terms of programming, member services, etc. So that is the other strategy behind the campaign, is to open up opportunities on an annual basis for the organization as well. Okay, and then in terms of the development efforts, drilling down a little bit on that, because that is a significant part of the budget, as you just saw. Our annual fund took in $252,000, and then you'll see the other buckets that have come in. You see the student scholarship took in $7,000, and the endowment fund, $127,000, for a total of $410,000. So as we mentioned last night, the $3 million that has been already pledged is a combination of current gifts and future gifts. And what we're seeing now is people are currently giving to the endowment as well. So the endowment has grown. You'll see the graph there on the endowment, and it's grown up to, by the end of March, was at $533,000 here. And just back in 2015, it was at 290. So you can see the significant growth in the endowment over the last couple of years. And then finally, I just want to say a quick word about the participation rates here. You'll see that the team and the council, 100% participation. Janelle mentioned last night that there was also 100% participation for the campaign as well. And in terms of fellows, 57%, regular members 27, and associate 23. So we've seen an increase in the participation rates as well in these other categories. And our goal is obviously to continue to increase the rates. So we appreciate your participation and the giving of your time, talent, and treasure. And just really grateful for the charitable giving over the last several years. We had our best giving year ever last year with the $410,000 that was given. So again, we're very grateful to all of you who participate in the annual fund and the other giving too. So in summary, and before I move to the 50-year members recognition, I just want to say that the ASA is in a very strong financial position right now. Even from where it was 2 years ago, we've made real strides in terms of our stewardship and stewarding the resources that God has given us. And we feel like we've been savvy and strategic in terms of the way we're investing in the staffing and other areas to put forward the best possible member services we can. So John mentioned a finance committee. We're accountable to a finance committee that looks at these reports and our cash reserve policy, the endowment policy. So we've got a great group of skilled people that are coming alongside us in these financial decisions, but just really grateful to God that in the midst of the challenges that Bill had talked about and coming out of COVID, that God has really blessed us in terms of the financial health of the organization. And again, that is part of the strategy for this legacy campaign, is to move the organization forward to secure financial sustainability and fiscal stability into the future. So now I'm going to shift gears, and it's always an honor every year at the ASA, State of the ASA, to recognize our 50-year members. Last night we recognized our 40-plus year members. And so I want to take the opportunity now to go one by one through each of these people. I hope some of you are joining us on the live stream. I know none of them were able to be here tonight. These members, when you think about it, joined the ASA in 1971. So that was just 30 years after the organization was established. And in 1971, I don't know if any of you were at this annual meeting or remember, but the 1971 annual meeting was at Whitworth College in Spokane, Washington. And I suspect that some of these members may have been at that meeting, and I know each one of these has been active during their 50 years in the ASA, and we're just appreciative of their longstanding faithfulness to the organization. So first of all, we'd like to recognize Kenneth B. Ehring. He's from El Cajun, California. Russell R. Camp is from my area, South Hamilton, Massachusetts. In fact, I saw Russ just a couple of weeks ago over at Gordon. He was hoping to come to the meeting, but was not able to make the trip. But he's very active in the Boston chapter, and it's always a delight to see him. Gordon Fish from Wilmington, Delaware, I know is active. I see him on the Diving Deepers every month, he's still engaged in the ASA. Richard Leo is from Grove City, Pennsylvania. We also have Robert Williamson from Mahonet, Illinois. And then finally, Davis Young from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I know Davis and his wife, Dorothy, have attended many, many meetings. I see people shaking their heads over the years. And in fact, John and I had the opportunity to meet with Davis just a couple of months ago in Grand Rapids. It was just a wonderful opportunity to reconnect with him as well. So I'd like to have us all give these people a round of applause for their longstanding faithfulness to the ASA. And now I'm going to invite John up.
Thank you. Well, we come to a moment that's a solemn moment in our annual State of the ASA meetings. This is a required business meeting, obviously, but it's also a chance for us as a community to honor those who have been part of our community that the Lord has called home in the last year. It's a ASA tradition to do a time of remembrance for our members who have passed into glory this previous year. We carry on this special tradition of naming in honor of each of them. And if you would like to say just something very briefly, we do have microphones, and I don't know who's responsible if they're coming forward for those. So we'll have a microphone available where you can do that. And as I name them, you can raise your hand and if you wish to say something. And I've asked a couple of people along the way here who know them, and I know a few in particular. And so we will go through these individuals. It's one of the interesting things. I'm a population ecologist, and so I'm well aware of the distribution of ages, and we're baby boomers in my generation at the front edge, and we just aging and change and happens. And I've journeyed, and many of us in this audience have journeyed with our family members on these journeys of aging. And this is an organization, and one of the consequences that Bill spoke about is that we have a heavy distribution of older members. And so one of the things that we do is when notifications come in, and oftentimes we're in contact with members and their families directly, Randy Isaac, in his emeritus role, prepares information, and we have a section in the membership area on the webpage called Members in Glory. And there you can find much more detail on each of these individuals. This is Jerry Bremer. Jerry passed away this last year. I'm not sure if anybody in the audience knows Jerry. Mike, would you like to say something, please?
Yeah, Jerry was a regular attender of the DC chapter, and I just had the pleasure of getting to know him over the last few years, and I reached out to him regarding one of our spring social that Vicki and Janelle had attended, and he wrote back and said, "You know what? I'm not in the best of health, but I wish you all the best." And that was 6 days before he died. And, I found out when you posted the Members in Glory in the latest newsletter, and just very saddened that regular member of our core body he's not going to be there anymore to illuminate us and to participate with us physically. But the union of the saints, we know that he's with us spiritually. And I know he's having a great time right now. So,
thank you, Mike. Charles Ellswood Chaffee has just passed away recently. And Bob, do you want to say something?
Charles is a member in CSCA. Yes, thank you. And Charles was a 50-year member of the ASA as well, but a very solid supporter of the CSCA. He was emeritus professor of chemical engineering at the University of Toronto, very active for many, many years in the science and faith scene. Very well known to us Hamiltonians. We had an active Hamilton chapter, and at the time Toronto did not have a chapter. And in his retirement, Charles would take a combination of his bicycle and mass transit to come to the Hamilton meetings from Toronto, and also similarly as a regular attender of our annual meeting as well. So, and really a man of very strong faith and just a tremendous gentleman. Sadly missed.
Thank you, Bob. I'm just reminded as these first two individuals have been mentioned, Vicki and I and the staff, the team, had a chance to call our members and we talked to many of the older members, and you think, what can I do? What can I do? And simply being present and participating and continue is such an encouragement, and the wisdom of those years, just appreciate that. Here is a remembrance of David Ernst Fisher. I don't know if anybody wants to say anything about David, but I'd like to. But Dot, go ahead. Because David's pretty special to many of us.
David was a delightful Christian fellow, and he joined us every Tuesday for lunches in the Natural Science Division. He loved ASA and he loved the Lord, and he really enjoyed fellowship with Christians, mathematicians, and we have missed him. Thank you.
Thanks, Dot. Those of you who especially are young faculty members and young researchers and active in areas, if you would have David here, he was with the Trans World Missionary Radio Association. And I got to know him first at the meetings when he pulled me aside and said, I'd like to interview on radio. Could we sit down? We broadcast into Russia. And I heard that you had just been into Russia back here, and you spent a week or two there. And so we did that over several years, and he would dutifully go around and collect all of this, and then through the years. So the ASA's reach, as Vicki has said, has been international in many, many respects. And David was just remarkable in that way. He was also a newsletter editor, along with Margaret Towns, and did that for a number of years for us. So very active in our organization, and we miss him. Then Stanley Moore passed away this last year. Does anybody? I don't see. All right, go ahead.
Say a few things. If anybody knew about him,
wait for the mic just a second. Yeah. Here you go.
He's a man who always spoke his mind. If anybody, he was very blunt, but he always meant well. He sponsored what's the university in L.A. up in the hills?
Yeah, he was at Pepperdine.
Yeah, Pepperdine. Okay, he and his wife sponsored one of the annual meetings there, and his wife it was a pastor and spoke, I believe, at was the Sunday speaker at that point. But
yeah.
I always enjoyed speaking with Stan Moore because of his very bluntness about various items, and but he always meant well.
Absolutely,
he was a great guy.
Stan was a political scientist, and I think that meeting at Pepperdine rivals this campus for beauty. And I just remember the barbecue out at the president's mansion, really, out in the backyard on a point overlooking the ocean. What a delight. Paul, did I see you wanted to say something?
Just wanted to mention also about Stan and Nancy. They were a dear couple, and we enjoyed getting to meet them, coming from back east to the west, and he was very hospitable to us. You know, he had also, we won't forget his famous African gray named Seymour Beak, who was always there with something to say. Yeah.
Right. Stan was the chairman of the political science department there at Pepperdine, and a remarkable individual. So Charles, Patrick, Sterling, Taylor, Pat, Bob.
Yeah, Pat was an emeritus professor of medical biophysics at the University of Western Ontario in London, and a very strong, loyal supporter in many ways of the CSCA. And we didn't have a London chapter and don't have a London chapter, but in a sense we did have a one-man London chapter, and that was Pat, who gave many talks and represented the ASA and CSCA very well and loyally, and died fairly suddenly, so we're all very saddened by this.
Thank you. Thank you. And then finally, Leland Williams. Leland just passed away recently. I'm going to ask Vicki to speak. There may be someone else who wants to as well, but if you can give the mic to Vicki, and she'll, because she was just...
Okay, I don't think I need the mic, yeah. So I first met Leland and his wife Cornelia, I think it was at the APU meeting when we had the 75th anniversary gala dinner. And then I became friends with them, and then they attended the Colorado School of Mines meeting, and then they were at the Gordon meeting. And you may recall Leland and Cornelia, they were the finished Southern couple. He was always dressed to the T in his starched pants and the plaid shirt, and she always had a dress on and a beautiful hat, and just real charming Southerners. And I just really, really enjoyed their company and had become friends with them. And Leland had wanted me to come down to see him because we had a small world connection. A woman from my church who had gone to Gordon Conwell Seminary had become the pastor of his church, and he had put the connection together that I might know her. So we had been back and forth over the course of the beginning of this the new year. And I said, Leland, I will come down and see you. So we had planned for me to come sometime in April or May, and then my mom got sick and passed away, so I had to delay that. But I just felt very strongly that I needed to get down to see Leland. And I kept saying to Becky and the team in the office, I've got to go, I've got to go. I just felt this need to go down there. So I flew down there on May 23rd. My flight was delayed, of course, and I'm racing to get to the dinner engagement at his retirement home. And I got there, and Lynn Grandshire, his pastor, was there, and his daughter Carolee was there, and we had just a wonderful, wonderful dinner together. He wanted to make sure that we had a bottle of wine, so we ordered us a bottle of wine, and it was just a real wonderful time together. And he, did a lot of sharing. Of course, his health had declined significantly since I had last seen him. He had lost his wife Cornelia just the year before, so he was grieving the loss of her. But it was just a delightful evening together, and he was sharing the story of his favorite ASA memory was sitting at the same table as Philip Yancey in 2017 at the Colorado School of Mines. Philip signed a book for him, and just a real highlight for him. And so I was able to then go back to his apartment and spend some time there with him. And I kneeled down next to him and prayed with him. And I knew when I left there that it would be the last time I would see him. Little did I know it would be so quickly after that. And I got a message from his daughter, Carolee, who now I've become friendly with. And she said to me, she goes, I think he probably was hanging on for your visit, for this small world connection that he wanted to make with me and Lynn Grandshire. So just real delightful couple, and he was a member for, I think, 60 plus years, and just real active and supportive of the ASA. So they meant a lot to me.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll take a moment and silently just reflect and give thanks to the Lord for these people. Let us pray together. For these our members in glory, Lord, hear our prayer. There is a time to be born. There is a time to die. There is a time to plant and a time to uproot. Lord, you have called these your servants home. We pray a blessing upon their memory and richness of grace to their families as they grieve these losses, and we do too. Hear our prayer, Lord. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm Veronica Frans, and I am the Vice President of Christian Women in Science. This evening, I would like to present an inaugural award in honor of one of our earliest women leaders of the ASA, the late Dr. Marie Hirsch Berg. This award, the Marie H. Berg Award, serves to honor excellent, impactful women members of the ASA who have led to the advancement of ASA's mission. First, I will share with you about this historic ASA member and her legacy. Okay, that's shaking. Okay. Dr. Berg was born in 1909. She was an educator, researcher, leader, and advocate for the Christian faith. She received her PhD in biochemistry from the University of Heidelberg in 1934 and held professional appointments at institutions, primarily in the Minneapolis and St. Paul region, including Hamline University, University of Minnesota, Northwestern College, and Metropolitan State Junior College. Dr. Berg's research related to the biochemistry of various human diseases. Later, she turned her attention to fire science and the chemistry of combustion of plastics and other materials. She published broadly and became a fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, where she also served on their committee for encouraging women to enter science in the 1950s and 60s. Dr. Berg was the first woman ever made an honorary fire chief of the city of Minneapolis as well. Yeah, she was quite the character. Dr. Berg integrated her faith and science daily. She always reached out to offer the gospel of Jesus Christ to others and served as a model for blending human concerns with our technical work. Dr. Berg became a member of the ASA in 1961 and was the first woman to be appointed an ASA Fellow, as well as the first woman to run for Executive Council, although unsuccessfully, in 1980. She served as the president of the North Central chapter of the ASA and was involved in the membership committee at the national level. At the time of her run for Executive Council, the ASA leadership stated, "We are grateful to Marie Berg for her faithfulness to Jesus Christ and for the energy she has channeled into ASA causes." Dr. Berg was faithfully an ASA member up until close to the time of her passing in 2007. She is now in glory. Oops. We honor Dr. Berg for her devotion to the advancement of the ASA by recognizing 3 incredible women in the ASA. These women will receive a pendant made from a Lake Superior agate, which was carefully collected, polished, and handcrafted by Gina and Chris Harmon from Gitche Gumi, a woman and Native American-owned business located in Michigan. Each of these pendants are slices from the same rock, known as sister rocks, to symbolize the sisterhood of women in the ASA. Agates are known for their colorful bands of microcrystalline quartz, but another thing that's wonderful about them is their translucency. This means that despite all the pressures that the sediments of these rocks are subjected to over time to form the swirls and bands that make them well known and favored by the world, light will always find a way to pass through them. Equally, I am sure that these women have overcome so many pressures and obstacles over the years to become who they are today. And yet, the light and love of Christ still shines through them as well. This light has especially shone over their service to the ASA and the many new pathways that they have paved for the next generation. For this inaugural year of the award, we wish to honor ASA Fellow Dr. Ann Hunt for her role as the first woman elected into the Executive Council in 1983 and for becoming the first woman president in 1986. We also recognize her leadership in the various ASA chapters near where she lived. ASA Fellow Dr. Sarah Miles, who was elected to the Executive Council in 1995 and served as president in 1998. We recognize her for her broad engagement in speaking and organizing activities related to the history of science in the ASA and for initiating the first conference for Christian women in science. They're not here, but we do want to honor these women, and they will receive their prize in the mail, but if you're on Zoom, we do appreciate you. There is another one who is here. ASA Fellow, Dr. Dorothy Chappell. Dr. Dorothy Chappell was elected to the Executive Council in 1999 and served as president in 2002. We recognize her for her passion for bringing students into the ASA and for the longevity of her leadership, including her service, all the way from the council to the CWiS leadership team. Again, thanks so much, and we can have another applause for all 3 inaugural Marie H. Berg awardees.
Can you all hear me all right? Too loud, huh? Well, many of you have felt the longing to connect what you do all day in your work in science with what you believe most deeply. And that's one of the things that draws people to the ASA. And last year, as we launched our first Early Career Scientist Award, we told you the story of planetary scientist Heidi Fuqua-Haviland, the honoree of that first ever Early Career Scientist Award. And we talked about how Heidi and I had connected at a moment when she was seeking a community that cares deeply about faith and about science. And we told the story of how ASA and InterVarsity's Emerging Scholars Network collaborated to build a student and early career track to support scholars and practitioners like Heidi. Yesterday, one of my dreams for this award was fulfilled when Heidi came and told her story to other early career scientists who are also excited about connecting work and faith. And I believe that it's those moments of shared storytelling that help us imagine a bigger vision for what God can do and help us truly cultivate hope for how deeply we can connect science and faith. And so today, with our second ever award for an early career scientist, we would like to recognize someone who's very good at inviting people into those moments of story and conversation. And hopefully, I'll even press the right button. Oh, I gave you a preview. Well, anyway, I think I'd better stop pressing buttons for the moment. But you have seen a picture of Esmond's smiling face, and I would invite him to come up on stage as I tell you a little bit more about him. So Esmond completed his PhD this year at Stanford. He has been honored for his scientific papers and talks by several organizations, including the American Society for Gene and Cell Therapy. And Esmond is also deeply committed to inviting friends and colleagues into faith and science conversations. He serves as president of the Silicon Valley chapter of ASA, and he helped the chapter to adapt innovative digital forms during the pandemic and connected to wider conversations in that time. And I remember his enthusiastic recruiting for our 2022 early career event, which was deeply encouraging to me because I didn't know what it would be like to run it. And we had 100 people come. So Esmond has also worked with InterVarsity to support graduate students and sharing their own faith and work connections through short TED-style talks, among other campus ministry roles. So please join me in honoring Esmond. And Esmond, if you walk across the stage. We're very proud to honor Esmond. I did not get you an agate, but by next year we may catch up to Christian women in science on that front. And our second honoree for the Campus Ministry Award is Denise Margaret Thompson, whom many of you have gotten to meet this week. And Denise has led faith and science work with the Stanford graduate InterVarsity groups, building on her own experience as a faculty member and college president. Denise actually has 2 doctorates in engineering and related fields, so she's great at graduate school advice, among other things. And she has also worked with international campus ministry networks such as CARE IFES, the International Fellowship for Evangelical Students in the Caribbean. And she currently serves as the director of InterVarsity's National Black Scholars and Professionals Network. And as you may also have noticed, Denise is so passionate about faith and science connections that she invited more than 10 people who are here today, even though this is her very first ASA meeting also. So it's with great pleasure that I welcome Denise to the stage. Well, it's a delight to share those. And as we honor people and communities who are engaging faith and science questions, let's celebrate how many new friends and colleagues we welcome this year. And generosity and hospitality are part of that celebration and building of community. And so I would invite you, as you're able to join us in that generosity. We were very moved this year by an outpouring of generosity towards student scholarships in our whole network, including even students who gave, at least one student who gave money towards other students being able to come. It was just so meaningful to be part of a community that generous. And so we invite you, as you're able, to give towards student scholarships for next year and grow our community even more fully. You can do that online at the ASA website, network.asa3.org. If you go to make a gift at the top right and specify the Student Scholars Fund, you can use Venmo at ASA, or you can send a check to the ASA office. So I want to thank you so much again for your generosity, and please join us afterwards at the InterVarsity reception where we'll continue to celebrate.
Baskets as well. So while John comes up to say a word about the 2023 and 2024 meeting, we're going to pass baskets as well. So thank you.
Vicki, is there a slide? Oh, there we are. I read the first lines, not the bottom lines. So two upcoming annual meetings that you need to be aware of. And we'll start here with the Washington, D.C. in 2024. Mike Byler has led the team, that local chapter, and has put together a proposal. It actually would have been this year, or last year. It would actually last year. I mean, COVID has really confused us. Longest serving program chair. Yes, exactly. And so that long delayed meeting, we hope, will happen in 2024 in Washington, D.C. We'll be at the Catholic University there again, and really looking forward to that as that unfolds. Next summer, you're being invited to go north, where CSCA will host their 50th anniversary meeting at the University of Toronto, Mississauga campus. Very convenient location in that you fly into the Pearson International Airport, and it's just a few minutes drive just south of the airport. And of course, you know, there's ready access to some small natural features like Niagara Falls and Lake Ontario and the escarpment to the north and to the west. And there's so many beautiful things to see. And you can wander around at night and be chased by raccoons and other. It's a beautiful campus. We were there this spring and walked through. Lots of vegetation to walk through. It's just a wonderful, small, compact campus. I think you're going to enjoy that and that meeting. And we have a brief video in order to describe this.
Hi, my name is Arnold Sikkema. I'm the Executive Director of the CSCA, the Canadian Scientific and Christian Affiliation. We are the expression of the ASA in Canada. Next year, we're celebrating CSCA's 50th anniversary, having been formed 1 year after the ASA's meeting held at York University. Our anniversary celebration committee is co-chaired by Rebecca Dielschneider and Judy Taronchuk. We're holding a Canada-wide lecture series with past presidents throughout the year. We'll be presenting a series of questions and answers with 50 featured CSCA members, and holding other fun year-long activities, as well as special events at the July meeting. Speaking of the July meeting, we'll be hosting that at the University of Toronto, Mississauga in 2023. Our local arrangements chair is Vlad Passerin, and he'll be assisted by Bob Geddes. UTM is a short distance from Canada's largest airport, Toronto Pearson, and is not much further from the downtown Toronto airport. Plus, it's only an 8-hour drive from both Chicago and Boston. UTM occupies a beautiful campus right next to the historical and naturally significant Credit River. We're working on a few field trip possibilities, including geological features of moraines and the Niagara Escarpment. Toronto's Royal Ontario Museum will be able to have a guided tour of the new Dawn of Life exhibit, which includes the world's largest collection of Burgess Shale fossils. In the Guelph region, we'll be able to see the Arosha Cedar Haven Eco Center with its focus on sustainable development and conservation education, as well as Crieff Hills, which is the National Retreat and Conference Center of the Presbyterian Church in Canada. And we'll be able to see the Royal Botanical Gardens. And now, let's hear about the conference program itself.
Greetings, I'm Janet Warren, and along with Robert Mann, I'm delighted to be program co-chair for next year's upcoming annual meeting, where we are delighted to be celebrating CSCA's 50th anniversary. For our program, although things are not finalized yet, we certainly plan to include all the various areas of creation, including the physical, biological, psychological, environmental, and reflections on it in theology, as well as information technology. Our speaker lists include Donna Strickland, who's a Nobel Prize winner in physics. As well, we have Catherine Hayhoe, many of you know, environmental scientist. We have Dennis Alexander from the UK, who is speaking on Are We Slaves to Our Genes? We have Victoria Lorimer from Australia, who will be speaking on human technological enhancement and theological anthropology. And we have Joanna Ng, who is in IT.
So we are very much looking forward to welcoming you to Canada, to the University of Toronto, Mississauga for our 50th anniversary celebration and for the 77th annual meeting of the American Scientific Affiliation. See you then.
So it's time for question and answer here, and my first question to you is, what did I forget? I forgot to say thank you to my colleague and compatriot and Zoom partner for the last 2.5 years, Vicki Best.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, John. It's been a joy to work with John, and I'm certainly going to miss him. But as I've said to him, we're not going to let him go too far. I've got a long list of things that we'll keep him busy with in his second retirement.
Thank you. So, I missed it. To your questions. There may be a roving mic somewhere if someone grabs one.
We'll take about 5 minutes for questions. I know you're all anxious to get to the ice cream social, especially this little guy next to Charles. He's been asking about the ice cream, right? Yeah.
I may have missed it, and it's one of these situations where I know the answer, but I'm hoping others will find out the date for the 20th.
Arnold, it's the last weekend in July, but I don't have those dates off the top of my head.
It's something like the 28, 29, 30, 31. And it is, for the Canadians, it's the week before the long weekend in August. So.
Thank you.
Charles?
Charles?
Simple question. Are you going to continue doing wonderful devotions?
Yes, they have been, haven't they? Dana, we are going to continue those devotions, right?
In print? Yeah, sure, we can do that.
Yeah, those have been a real hit, and we've received great feedback that people have appreciated those. So yes, we are planning to continue them.
So if you get an email from me, please follow through.
So if you're interested, please let us know. We will certainly take volunteers, and we've had wonderful participation. Just delightful to see people step forward for that. Anything else? This is your opportunity. Paul.
Yes, I just wanted to pass along some news. Our dear friend George Murphy, who is a theoretical physicist and Lutheran pastor who also often leads our worship services at the ASA meetings. And he just last week had triple bypass surgery. He's recovering and he's in rehab now, and I just thought I would pass on that news.
Thank you for that. George has been such an important part of this organization over the years, and we miss him. And I could say we've missed having Randy Isaac with us as well this week, and unfortunately could not be with us here, but has been online and holding discussions online. That was really valuable. And Paul, certainly give George our greetings. We do miss, these are just the rocks that you see year after year after year, and you come to count on them to shape your thinking. I know I could easily have put him beside Ram. I could put George there in terms of informing me and shaping me. I see Michael shaking his head positively as well. It's just amazing to be able to have the quality of this theological content right together with you to test your ideas, and it's just been wonderful. Any other questions?
I just wanted to mention, too, when you mentioned George, Paul, it reminded me that our staff at our weekly staff meeting have carved out time to spend time in prayer. And a big piece of that is praying for our members. So please convey to George that he's in our prayers. And while we're on the topic of prayer, we should mention our prayer committee. We have a prayer committee, very faithful people that come in, and on a quarterly basis, we get together and spend time in corporate prayer. So if anybody's interested in joining the prayer committee, certainly feel free to reach out, and we'd be happy to have you join us.
And we did mention the ECFA. I was delighted to receive a message from them last fall that they were praying for us, and on a regular basis. So they pray for their members, and they were asking us for prayer requests. So we're part of a team. We're part of a community. We are part of God's kingdom and work, and that's really encouraging to all of us. I see there's a question there. Jennifer.
Yeah, and if you already discussed this at the beginning of this meeting, I may have missed it, so no need to rehash it. But I would like to know, if you didn't discuss it already, how well this hybrid format is working, because it's a different world now. Now that we've become used to doing things online and in hybrid format because of COVID. But now, as we're moving forward, do you see this kind of hybrid format as being something we'll continue at these annual meetings? And have people been able to ask questions or provide input? Like even this meeting, I was wondering if some of the people online had some comments about those of our members who have departed, or, have a chance to really participate. I know it's a lot of work to do a hybrid meeting, and I just wondered what you see of that for the future.
Thank you for that question. That's really excellent, because our challenge is our size and our capacity, and Vicki spoke about that earlier. And in particular, we had anticipated 2 years ago that when we came to this meeting, that we would be both fully in person and fully online, as we did last summer. We realized by sometime in the fall that simply wasn't going to be possible. We don't have the capacity to do both. We did online, we think, with excellence last year. That was what many of you see. You're shaking your heads, yes. And we got feedback that was excellent. That took our entire staff flat out to be able to do that. Together with the Your Membership Services, that's an organization that provides a number of things, and they had this Pathable unit. This year, as we came on, we realized and we stopped. We said, we're just going to be in person. And then finally we said, well, we can live stream at least one here in Krill Auditorium. And we did that. And Randy agreed then to try and create community there. Our intention is to be fully online, fully virtual, and fully in person next summer. As the resources come in and we build capacity, we think we can do that and pull it off. That's our intention. And it certainly is the goal, because that is the future. We all know that now. We've entered that. There's so many losses in COVID, but one of the blessings has been this. It has shown us all how to do Zoom and all how to be online. And then we're beginning to learn how to do that well. And of course, diving deeper, and brown baggers are a key piece of that, the Winter Symposium. That capacity to reach an audience we've never been able to reach. And we all know that the growth in the gospel is in the outreach in the church, the real cutting edge that Hal talked about last night. It's not particularly in North America and in Europe. It's happening in the Southern Hemisphere. It's happening elsewhere around the world. And the capacity to reach out into those communities. And we know one of our partner organizations, Hugh Ross, in Reasons to Believe, talking with Hugh and Kathy this last year, and he said, we're primarily an evangelistic outreach organization. We are trying to reach people with the gospel. We're trying to reach into churches, and secondarily, they meet scientists. And they do essentially what we do, right? Which is connecting scientists who feel marginalized in their churches and marginalized in their professional field. So we think this Zoom capacity is going to be a significant part of the future. And we'll have young people and new people who will come in who know that and have learned it. So thank you. Here's a question here.
I guess my question, even to kind of keep going off that, is, Zoom is great, but, and I don't really love social media, but I'm curious, where then, since that's where all the young people kind of are and where they are taking in a lot of information, how does the ASA, in hoping to get more young people involved, hope to reach students there where they're at, because you can put up posters and get professors to talk, but really, unfortunately, that is where everybody's attention kind of is. And so I'm curious if you guys have places where you're wanting to reach out in those avenues or not.
You talk about student chapters?
Yeah, we have, I think it's 5 student and campus chapters, and you heard last night from Angie and Matthew, and I'm seeing them here in the audience, and they've done a really great job of engaging students. Another one of the leaders of the Gordon chapter is sitting next to Matthew. I see him as well. So that's an area where we're envisioning students getting involved in at the chapter and campus level as well. And in terms of the social media piece of it, Dana, you might say a quick word of some of the efforts that you're making in the realm of social media.
Yeah, we use platform Hootsuite so that we can post out to 3 of the platforms currently. And we've been in discussions about using LinkedIn more readily. So it's a topic that's in conversation within the staff. And as we, again, have the capacity to do that, we're moving in that direction.
Yeah, and in terms of I was thinking about the poster session, because one of the other thoughts that we had considered this year was to put on a online poster session for the students, because I know Denise had a number of other students that were wanting to come, but weren't able to get visas to get here. So that's another area that we envision growing, is that capacity for students to come in at a meeting, might not be able to be here in person, but would have the opportunity to present, for instance, in the poster session.
That's actually a great question, because there's several different areas. On the student chapters, we will partner with organizations that already have student-led organization on a campus. Don't have to start an ASA chapter, something new. So we will partner together wherever that's happening. That's one of the things. The online is quite remarkable. Some of you may know an organization called Global Scholars. And some will know Global Scholars Canada. It's a sister organization. Those 2 organizations, and particularly Global Scholars here in the US, starting about 7, 8 years ago, developed something called the Society of Christian Scholars. It's an international society, primarily online, with full service to indigenous scholars in other countries around the world. Global Scholars has had a big impact in Africa, in Southeast Asia, in Eastern Europe. And the idea there is to provide the services that are not readily available to faculty and graduate students. And we're in conversation with them to start an active partnership with them, so we can begin to connect and mentor and interact both with North American Christians in the natural and social sciences and internationally. And this is a way to provide those, and the internet provides that possibility. Who's been to the library lately to read a journal? We all get it right at our desk or on our cell phone or wherever it is, right? And so this is really the future. It's the direction, and we're actively working on that as quickly as we can. Yeah.
Oh, can I also say something? Can I say something as well as a student? So one thing too is, like, obviously we meet once a year, and then there are also these, we have other ways of meeting, but get in touch. So like, I'm a PhD student and I'm excited about things that are happening. And I would just email Hannah, email Dana, email like Vicki, Becky, John, like whoever you've connected with through the ASA. You just say, hey, this is what's going on. This is something that happened at our chapter, or just maybe something happened with you personally that was a good experience. And so like ASA wants to highlight their members too. And so even if you have an idea to even just launch something with Dana, for example, like ASA is open to that and they're willing to listen to your ideas. So just because you're a student doesn't mean that you sit around and you wait for everybody to go do everything. You can do things too, and just keep giving them the nudges. And they have Facebook, and all these members love to hear from everyone else. So keep in touch. That's the best way to do things and get things going.
Thank you, Veronica, for that. You're great at keeping in touch. So I think we're at 9:30 now, and we don't want the ice cream to melt. So John's got one more thing to say, and I'll just give direction. The ice cream social will be next door, and I think it's called the ARC, A-R-C, and it's down on the lower level. So make your way over there, and if you have any other burning questions, feel free to see John or I or a member of the team.
Let me finish with this. I said at the outset, this is a historic meeting. What the council has been doing, and I think the guide that has given us, is Paul's experience in Asia Minor. And he stands there with those churches planted, and he turns and he sees what? He has a vision of Macedonia, and he has a vision of someone saying, come over here, we have a need. There's so much more that we can do and achieve. And then Paul does that, and then he's on his way to Rome. He's pushing to the very extremities of the empire. He's trying to reach out continuously. That's what we need to be doing. That's the spirit of this next generation, is to push out. I think God's given us and gifted us massively in our organization. We need to share those riches, and we need to grace and bless other people. We have the capacity to do this. And so pray with us and for us and your team, and we'll pray for you as well. And we are going to enjoy some ice cream for the evening. Thank you.